Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by writer and host of the video essay series, Sunlit Horror, Anna Studebaker. Anna, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I think I lost you there for a second. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So for those of the people that don't know, Sunlit Horror here on YouTube, I do have all the links down here in the description, not just for that, but also for all her social media. So make sure you're giving her a follow as well. What can you tell people about Sunlit Horror that they may not know already?
So it's a video essay series that I'm doing where I focus on scenes that happen in sunlight and horror movies, since a lot of the focus is usually on dark and shadows and all that. So I like to kind of dissect and pick apart those scenes and what they might mean, and themes that can be associated with sunlight horror as well. So yeah, it's been really fun.
And that's something that, like you said, that's not more often than not, you're done in the dark. One of the ones I can think, Midsummer is one of the ones that was a lot of the light in that.
That's a big one. And actually, my first video is out, and the theme for that is Femme trauma. So the whole episode is about trauma that women or femme people experience and how it's reflected in horror films. And a lot of the times having it happen in the daylight can help us connect with that character more, which I feel like is a huge reason of why we connect with Dani in Midsummer, because we're seeing all of her emotions so clearly and how she's affected by everything happening to her. So.
And more often than not, horror as a genre, you focus on women more in horror than you do a lot of other genres. I mean, you have the term final girl because a lot of times horror has always been about empowering women and how strong women can be fighting back against these things. And I think that that's something that horror was way ahead of its time on, because I mean, you look at, Ripley, you look at Jamie Lee Curtis, all these final girls from the 70s and 80s, they were kicking ass back then. So horror has always been very woman-centric in the genre. And it hasn't always just been about, the sex scenes or the nudity. It's been about how powerful women can be and standing up for themselves. So that's something that horror's always been ahead of its time on. And for you guys to see here, like Sunlit Horror, obviously we talk a lot. We're friends. And I love supporting your channel. I love the things you're doing. And I'm so excited to see more of what you're about to do. So do you have any videos that are coming up that you can let us in on a little bit, or?
Yes, so my second episode should be posting soon to Anatomy of a Scream is the channel on YouTube that is basically like producing my videos. And they have a whole bunch of other content. They've got interviews and reviews, and they actually just launched a podcast network as well. So I'm really happy to be collaborating with them. So I should, in the next probably week or so, have my second episode, and that one's going to be on monsters that we see in the day. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, because this was pre-recorded, that episode may be out by now. So make sure you're checking these links out down here in the description. Let her know about these monsters you're seeing in the day and which ones have affected you the most as well. So we know what you're doing in the future, Anna, with the monster episode. We know what you're doing right now. But now I want to take it back to the past, Anna, and I want to talk about what got you started in the horror genre. Your first horror movie, and your first horror movie was?
2004's The Grudge.
And I'm so appreciative that this was your first horror movie, because this is a movie that I haven't watched since it came out. And coming off of the heels of the popularity of The Ring, I don't think I really gave this movie the chance that I should have. And on a rewatch, there's a lot I picked up on that I actually enjoyed a lot more of this go around than I did the first time. So let's get started with this. So how old were you the first time you had seen this film?
So I think it was right when it came out. So I probably would have been about 11 years old, which I think is a little bit later than a lot of people for their first horror movie. But I guess when I was younger, I watched a lot of Disney and stuff like that. And I liked the horror elements in those films because there are some pretty scary scenes in some Disney and other animated movies. So I think I liked it then. And then I finally, when I was a little bit older, was able to see a full horror movie. And it just really, really stuck with me.
Right. And this is a movie that is such a good movie to start off with. But the thing that about this movie is, to me, it feels more like an anthology movie almost, the way you're following the different characters and what they're doing. Rather than telling one story, this really feels like an anthology movie to me. Do you remember who you were with the first time you had watched it?
So I think I was at a friend's house, and we just decided to put it on. But I have another distinct memory of I had gone on a vacation with my family. It was for a family reunion. And I watched it with a bunch of cousins. And one of my cousins is actually half Chinese. And he was probably about 5 years older than me. So at the time, he was the same age as the boy Toshio. And he would do the impression of him making like the cat noises and stuff. And it freaked me out so bad.
And I love that. That's one thing I love about horror is the way that we can make it relate to our personal life and make it even scarier. You know, I always hear stories about we had buddy dolls when we were younger. And when I was a kid, I had very, very blonde curly hair and I looked just like the little boy from Flowers in the Attic. So that movie will always be so terrifying to me just because of that. So it's funny how these scenes can come to us and affect us. And you guys just heard some of that in the intro, actually, but how it can stay with us because of things that happen in our everyday life, which makes it that much more impactful and powerful because of how important it is to us in our everyday life to keep it going.
Definitely.
So do you remember which scene from The Grudge affected you the most?
So it's probably the scene where Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, Karen, I believe her name is, she's going over to the house to help out the old woman. And it's when she first sees Kayako. And the hair, the dark black hair starts in the corner of the room and just slowly spreads out. That I would have nightmares about that. I would be laying in bed, 11 years old, and I'd be staring in the corner of the room going, oh God, oh, it's so dark. Oh no, is that hair? Ah, is she here? And that just, it affected me so much.
Yeah, and then you see the face too, like when she gets down, like, oh my gosh. And it's funny, there's so many parts of this movie. I only watched it once when it first came out, and I didn't realize how much this movie affected like the later scary movies. Like even like the hand when she's taking a shower and you see the hand and she touches it and turns around and gets all freaked out. Like I forgot about moments like that in this movie and how powerful this movie was and influential. And another one is like when you see her going down the elevator and the boy's there getting closer as she's going down
every floor. Every little tiny moments like that they did such a good job with. So like haunting and kind of like a slow burn, and it would build and build. Really good.
And I totally didn't even realize that Sam Raimi was a part of this movie. Like
I hadn't either.
I started watching it and seeing Ted Raimi in it. And I was like, that's Ted Raimi. So I started, this is Sam Raimi.
Me as an 11-year-old, I had no idea who these people were. And I just knew Sarah Michelle Gellar from the live action Scooby-Doo movie. So I was like, oh, I know her, but of course I don't know any other actors. So when I rewatched it, I was like, oh my gosh, like Ted Raimi's in this movie, and Bill Pullman, and I was like, whoa, this is wild. I didn't realize there were some, recognizable people besides Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Right, and there really is. That's so awesome. So I want to talk about when you think about The Grudge, what is the first thing that pops into your head, Anna?
It's gotta be not a visual, but the noise, the sound that they make when they open their mouth, and it's just like we would all the time at school, people would just come up behind you and make that noise, and you'd be like, ah.
Yes.
It's so well done, so simple, but so effective, because when you hear that, something bad is gonna happen.
Yeah. Even in the movie, like when she's on the phone, like again, guys, you heard that during the intro. For anybody that hasn't seen this movie, the sounds that you were hearing during the intro, that's what that is. It's the sound of the monster, I guess you could say. And it's such a scary sound, but it's so simple. Like you said, it's a sound that anybody can make at any time. That's what makes it so effective. That's what I love about this movie is how effective it really was. So this is a Japanese remake. Obviously, this is a remake of a Japanese film. Ju-on, I believe, or maybe that was
so
Ringu, this was Ju-on.
And I believe there was Ju-on, The Curse came before this one, so it wasn't the first in that Japanese series, but I was surprised. I didn't realize that it was the same director who did both the original Ju-on movies and then the remake. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. I read something about him seeing it as an opportunity to kind of fix some of the problems he saw with the original. And I actually did watch the original in preparation for this interview, and I didn't realize there are some shots that are almost shot identical to the remake.
And I love that. I love the fact that he was like, I have this chance to capitalize on something overseas. Instead of selling my rights, why don't I go over there and work with Sam and Ted Raimi and make this my own as well? You keep it the way that I wanted my original vision and do things that maybe I didn't do right the first time. Because he was part of The Grudge 2 as well. Not the remake, but The Grudge 2. He was a part of that one as well with Sam Raimi, which I didn't realize, which I'll be rewatching that one as well here soon, as soon as I can get my grubby little fingers on it. So with The Grudge, we talked about which scene affected you the most, but what is your favorite scene from The Grudge?
I think it has to be pretty much the whole sequence with, I believe the character's name is Susan, at the office building. I think that whole section from beginning to end is so well done, and the build up, and probably my favorite part of that sequence is when she is watching the surveillance footage and she sees the security guard go and check out the floor, and she's like, oh, okay, everything's fine, but she keeps looking, and the shadow just comes up and starts walking towards the camera. I just thought that was so well done.
Yes. Another thing I love about this sequence is when you have the language barrier when she's trying to talk to him and let him know there's something wrong. And then he's like, I'll just go check it out. And where they kind of throw a curveball here is after the scene's over and, the detective comes back and watches the tape. You think that there's not going to be anything there. You're like, oh, he's going to watch it. But then he sees exactly what she saw on the security footage. And I was like, that's just brilliant, because the whole time they're building it up. You're like, oh, he's going to go there and not see anything. But then he sees exactly what she saw. And it's so awesome. So we talked about your favorite scene. Now I'm going to get a little dark here with you, Anna. What kill from the movie is your favorite kill, or what death is your favorite death from this movie?
So I'm probably going to have to say that the scene back at the social clinic or whatever, where Sarah Michelle Gellar works, where Ted Raimi is leaving, it's late at night, and he's walking down the stairs and he sees Yoko, I believe, Yoko walking, and she looks, I don't know why he didn't just run out the door when he first sees her, because she looks so scary and so like mangled and gross. And he like reaches down and touches the pool of blood on the floor, and then she turns around and you realize the jawbone that they had found earlier in the attic belonged to her, and she is just walking around like a zombie. And they cut away, I mean, a lot, you don't see like the actual death of most of the characters, so they cut away before, I mean, you can assume that he died.
Right.
I just
then
that was so scary.
Well, and then they get the phone call, later on. They're dead. Yoko and him dead. So it does confirm his death later on. But one thing I love about this movie, too, is it did take a page out of the American slasher film by killing off a major movie star at the very beginning of the film with Bill Pullman. You see him and he turns around and then he looks back and he just lets himself fall over the balcony and hits the ground. And luckily he comes back later on in the movie, so we do get to see his acting chops, because Kat's dad and Casper, I love Bill Pullman. He's great. He's amazing. So watching him die at the beginning is kind of like the Drew Barrymore in Scream, where you have this big star come and just get killed at the very beginning of the film. And I thought that was amazing too. So we've talked about The Grudge a little bit here, Anna, but now I want to go a little bit different route here. We talked about your first horror movie, but I want to go Scream on you here. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, man. So I kind of have a stock answer for this, even though, it can change all the time. But I think I have to say the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I just actually have a blanket behind me. I don't know if you can see.
And the poster.
Oh yeah. Leatherface back there. That movie I think it was really the first horror movie that I saw where I realized, wow, this can be so different from everything I've seen before. A lot of the movies I had seen before was kind of like The Grudge, where it was like very high production value, a bigger star, stuff like that. But I had never seen anything as like grungy, or honestly like as brave as the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So for some reason it just always sticks out in my mind. So I always say it's my favorite.
And it's a beautiful movie. Like the way that movie is shot, it's so beautiful. And people that haven't seen it think, oh, it's bloody and gory and nasty. It's not. Like the original Texas Chainsaw is so tame in comparison to what horror is now, but it's just scary. Like it doesn't need the blood and guts to be scary. Like the dinner scene in that movie is one of the scariest scenes I think in any horror movie ever. You know, like when and then like grandpa's trying to get her, like, oh, that's such a scary scene, like such a terrifying scene.
Yeah. And when I forget which character is one of the guys when he first enters the house, and the pacing in that scene is so effective because it's slow, it's quiet, and you really don't know what's gonna happen when you've never seen it before. And so you're just like, this is a weird house. I don't know what's going on. And the face just comes out and acts him with that hammer, and you're like, whoa, like all bets are off. Anything can happen in this movie. Yeah. So
that's
good.
Such an iconic scene too, with that big metal door slamming open.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I love that. It's such a great scene. It's such a great movie. And it sucks because Texas Chainsaw 1 and 2 are so good. And then the series just goes so not good after that to me. Like 1 and 2 are amazing. After that, not a huge fan. But so before we go, Anna, I want to bounce back to The Grudge real quick. What we're going to do now is we're going to rate this on a skull count. 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. And we're not ranking it on production or acting or anything like that. We're not being film critics here. We're ranking this just strictly on what this film means to you and how it affected you. So 0 to 5 skulls, what would your ranking of The Grudge be?
I think I have to say, since I didn't read it honestly until the rewatch for this interview, probably since I originally saw it. So it definitely affected me, but I wouldn't say it's a favorite. But I'm so grateful that I saw it, because I think I honestly owe my love of horror to it ultimately. But I think because of that, I would probably give it, can I give a half, 3.5? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
3.5. Yeah.
And I mean, like the thing about this movie too is you have, like, yes, it's a scary movie, but you have scenes in this movie that are so overly terrifying. Like, I don't care how old I am. Like I said, I just rewatched this the other night too, because I like to rewatch these so they're fresh on my mind. I dare someone to find me a scarier scene in any film than when she's coming down the stairs.
Oh my gosh, the stairs.
Like, and her body's contorting. And like, that is such, I'm watching this movie just like, oh my gosh, like, why didn't I like this movie more when I first seen it? Because I remember not liking this movie at all. But man, like, it's a very good movie. Like, yeah, there's some plot holes in it. I'm not a fan of the ending, but man, her coming down those stairs, like in my living room as a 35-year-old man, I'm like, shit. Like, looking over at my stairs, like, no. Take the kids, they're younger, they taste better. I'm old, you don't want me. So Anna, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, please make sure you're checking out her links down here in the description. I have all of them in there, just like every other person here on YouTube. She's working her ass off trying to get us the best content she can, and it would be really nice for you guys to go and give her a follow, give her a sub, and support the work that she's doing as well. Don't go anywhere, Anna. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.